I'm Ann Franzenburg. My husband Eric and I and our son Calvin, we own and operate Pheasant Run Farm in Van Horne, Iowa. We grow conventional and organic corn and soybeans, medicinal herbs, horticultural crops such as cut flowers and vegetables. And we had a greenhouse operation. Oh, wow. So the storm rolled through. It was probably a little after 12. So my son happened to be in the house eating lunch, and I have a day job. I was working from home virtually. And the first thing that happened was that we lost power. We had some indications that a storm was coming our way. So we didn't really know how bad it was going to be. We just thought it would be high wind. And so maybe at least 2 or 3, maybe 5 minutes before the storm happened, our power went out. And so that made us both go, wow, this must be kind of bad, because usually you have the wind and then you lose the power. So we figured there were some pretty major power stations getting knocked out before it hit us. Then the wind picked up, and we're doing a thing on our farm called the Sunflower Experience. We have 5.5 acres of sunflowers planted for people to come out and visit and walk through and just experience what it's like to be, out in nature in the sunflowers. And I remember thinking, well, maybe the sunflowers will be okay. And then the wind started to blow a little harder, and I'm like, no, the sunflowers are finished. And then the wind started to blow harder, and we could hear trees breaking, and I looked at my son and said, let's go to the basement. So we went to the basement, and it was really awful. I mean, there's no way to describe it except that you could just hear the wind roaring and you could hear things breaking. And it was different from other straight line winds that I've experienced. I've never had to go through a tornado, thank goodness, but usually straight line winds are over with, in a matter of minutes. And this lasted like 25 minutes, which felt like years and years. So then finally we could tell that the wind had abated a little bit. We went upstairs and started to look out windows to see where the damage was. I went up to the upstairs of our house to see if there was any roof damage or any water coming in anywhere, and we were very fortunate that we didn't have any significant damage or roof damage to our house. But we couldn't see out the windows because it was raining so hard. So we stepped out into our garage, and that's when we were just smacked in the face with nothing left. Just utter desolation. Corn crib was completely toppled over onto its side. It's a wooden corn crib. All of our greenhouses were just a tangled mess, and the Morton building that's attached to our greenhouses that acts as the head house in our packing facility was completely gone, just completely rolled over. No roof. So then you start to try to figure out, where are the people that you love, right? So my husband had ridden the storm out in the Sunflower Experience, and we were able to have cell reception for a little bit of time to get some contact with him so that we knew he was okay. He had been in his vehicle when it hit there, along with a couple other carloads of people. And so he requested that we come over, and because they were down in the field and the people in their cars needed to be pulled out with the tractor because we had so much rain, it was so muddy. But in order to do that, Calvin and I had to push trees off of the road because our road was blocked. So we were able to push off thank God Calvin was with me. I would have never been able to do it, right? I wasn't strong enough to do it by myself. A little opening so we could get out, and then as we were driving, you can just see no bins, no Morton buildings, trees down everywhere, power lines snapped off. It was just crazy. And different from a tornado or a straight line wind because it's such a wide path of devastation. We're sitting in our destroyed Morton building in the sunshine, which normally this is in the shade. So we were without power so the storm came through on Monday, and we were fortunate to get power back like Thursday afternoon. And then we got internet back that following Monday. And the cell service was pretty spotty for that whole week. We didn't really have good cell reception or signals or anything until probably Friday of that week. So, it also drives home just how fragile your infrastructure is, right? Like the snowplow had to come through and open up roads, to knock trees off of the roads so that people could get in and out. And that was in rural areas as well as in urban and towns. Well, I mean, you know, so part of it you have to wait to harvest to find out, you know, you can compare against what your quote unquote normal yields are. So corn and soybeans, it's going to be really interesting, but I'd be surprised if, you know, we have any kind of a corn crop at all. I hate to even speculate on what bushels per acre of that would be. And then, like I said, on the beans too, like if you just look at it, you think, well, it looks pretty good, but then you walk around out in there and you see, oh, they don't have any pods. And as far as our horticultural crops go, they're completely lost. I would say that they're completely lost. Like we have little bits of things here and there for flowers that we can cut. We have some outdoor production that might bounce back, and a little bit of tomato production, but what happened was things just were shredded. You know, like where the wind knocked down greenhouses, then it just, sometimes you can't even recognize what was in there or what it was. It's a significant loss. At what point does it make sense to try and harvest stems that are going to take a lot longer to cut because they're so damaged, versus just getting back to a point where next year we can hit the ground running? So if we want to continue with growing things under cover, this is all going to have to be done before the snow flies in the fall. Because when spring happens, I mean, we like to plant in these like starting mid-February or the first part of March. So we're looking at a loss for the rest of this year, but we may well be talking about losses for the next several years just because we can't get our farm infrastructure back up to the point where we want it to be in a timely fashion. You know, it's one thing if you have a small area of damage, you know, you can access carpenters and electricians, and, you know, you can purchase things that you need to purchase relatively locally, but that's not the case because it's, you know, this path of destruction goes from central Iowa through Cedar Rapids, and then it's probably 40 miles wide. So there's just a lot of devastation everywhere. Just to get somebody to come and cut down a tree, you know, we've done what we can, and now we're at the point where we need professionals to take them down, and so it will be safe. And the same with this, you know, we can't deal with this by ourselves. We would if we could, but we can't. I mean, it's unsafe, so we've got to tap into some professional help. So everything is stretched to the breaking point. Farmers have to deal with weather and also a lot of situations that they have no control over. So in a lot of ways, the farmers are conditioned to be able to emotionally spring back from something like this. But we're trying to look at it as an opportunity to figure out what we want to keep doing on our farm operation and how we want to accomplish that. And then also what we want to retool and change, and what things we're going to let drop to the wayside.